Welcome, everybody, to One on One with the spectacular Samuel from SP Chef. On your way in, make sure that you are subscribed to him, and for that matter, to me as well. Make sure you push any like button you find anywhere, and make sure your notifications are set to all. I'm very honored to have SP Chef with me today. This is really cool because not only is it someone who knows what I'm talking about Scientologically, but I've always been curious. The like to me, the differences are massive in Europe with the Sea Org and with the USA. Like, you know what I mean? Like in every imaginable way. All we do is curse over here. Like 9 out of 10 words in a sentence are a curse word. I hear you speak for 4 hours. I don't know if I've heard you curse. Like it's you guys seem a lot more literate. Let's just put it like that than we are. I mean, half of our high school graduates cannot read or write. It's an absolute joke. And but other things that made me curious too, like we can just jump right into it. Do people, I don't know what the economy is like over there. Like, is it easier for people to come up with the money to go up the bridge, in Sweden than it is in America?
Um, mm, Difficult to say because, for example, in Switzerland, you are the pay, statistically speaking, is higher than in other countries. However, everything else is more expensive, like
Oh,
living, healthcare is quite expensive here, and things like that, and groceries and all of that. So it kind of balances it out. I mean, to give you an example, when I grew up as a child, so I grew up in Scientology. Both of my parents were Scientologists and were staff. They were working 100% staff and then also working outside to make enough money to support the family and do Scientology as well. Because all three of us, we started doing Scientology as soon as we were able to read. So yeah, it wasn't. They were not making enough. We were never poor or anything like that. We always had everything that we needed. We never went on a holiday on things like that because to us that was just a waste. Why not use the money to go up the bridge and so on and so forth? So yeah.
okay. And were you always just gifted in the kitchen, or was this something you did after the Sea Org? Because one thing that seems really prevalent over here is if people leave the Sea Org, it's like they don't really have a skill that can be translated into day-to-day life. I mean,
Sure.
even Mike Rinder needed to get his skills from Aaron, right, in order to
Right.
do the job he gave him. So
Yeah.
it does, like, is that, do people already have skills somehow when they get into the Sea Org in Europe?
Well, I mean, in Switzerland, for example, the way it goes, you go to school until you're 16 years old, and then when you're 16 years old, you make the decision: do you want to do an apprenticeship and learn a practical job? So, in other words, you don't go and study, become a doctor or something, but you learn to become a plumber, you learn to become a bricklayer, a chef, and so on and so forth. So that's what you then usually do at 16. If you decide, no, I actually want to go and study to become a doctor or whatever, then you go back to school and you go to university and so on and so forth. And it's in something I found and I heard of, although I don't know if that is really true, but in America, it's very much frowned upon to not go to university. Like if you're a father, you've got 3, 4 children, and none of your children go to university, it's like a scandal. It's like, oh my god, oh, hello there, or all your children stupid or something. In Switzerland, for example, that's not at all the case because we have very high degree of standards, of education. When you go become a chef, when you become a bricklayer, when you become a plumber, that our certificates are recognized all over the place. You don't have to do like a special schooling to convert the certificates. The you can use them all over the place, which is why I was able to work for somebody in Hong Kong, being a chef without having to do some special conversion schooling, for the schooling that I had in Switzerland. How is that actually in America? Is that like that if you don't go to university, it's sort of like, well, maybe he's just too dumb and that's why he didn't get in?
Yeah, well, it's more normally. I mean, the people that I know that I grew up with, it was a financial problem more than anything. Like I knew a perfect example. One of my best friends was this Korean lady who had a 4.1 average and did yearbook and band and any extracurricular thing you could imagine, and
Mhm.
still couldn't get into Stanford.
Okay.
Okay, because she needed a full ride because it's just too expensive. It's like
Sure.
literally far beyond the reach
Yeah.
of the average person.
Mhm.
Ours are the schools that you really want to go to are just
Sure.
just incredible. So, but I've always thought that the best idea for someone who didn't know what they wanted to do would be a trade school because
Sure.
I know,
Trade school. That's the word. Yeah.
yeah, and it's sort of they make you prove you have to prove that you can fix Harley Davidsons, before they give you that certificate.
Right. Right.
So you're very comfortable in hiring someone who went to a trade school where in a lot of college, I mean, I'm not talking about a doctor, right, or a lawyer, but in a lot of things you can study, if you just have a hell of a memory, you can you can get good grades and party all night and do whatever and maybe not be worth a damn at that specific post.
Yeah. Sure.
So I think a lot of our college degrees, like if you go to um, a mediocre, crappy, bottom feeding college and you get a degree in, physical education or something, I mean, it's damn near worthless. So, or business, I mean, I know a lot of people with degrees who just cannot get a job. So if you're
Yeah.
not, if it's one thing if you want to become a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, then that's good.
Sure.
It helps. But otherwise, I think college out here is not all that helpful. I mean, everyone I know, including myself, started their own business,
Mhm.
that did anything. I mean, the
Yeah.
reason I was able to make money is I was able to keep the profits. You know what I mean? So it's but yeah, I just think that it's like I've always thought it would be harder to convince Europeans the whole Scientology scam. I always figured it would just be so much more difficult because, like I said, it just seems like you guys are a hell of a lot smarter.
Well, well, that's the thing. I don't, I can't really answer that because I've met very intelligent people in Scientology, and I've met some people I thought, okay, I think they just have about two brain cells to rub together, and you get all sorts of people, and I can't answer that question. Why people join Scientology? I couldn't answer.
No, I
And
get it because my
yeah,
own mom was incredibly smart, and so was my
yeah,
sister, and they both fell for
yeah.
it. So that's a good
Same.
point. Yeah,
Same. My,
but
my mother, she's a polyglot. She speaks like 7 languages. And my stepfather is also very, very smart, and they fell for it. So you know,
and
I think something very important. If you become a Scientologist, you have to be somebody who has empathy and wants to help.
yeah,
I think if you're a very, very selfish person, I think it would be much more difficult to get into Scientology because Scientology is all about helping others, clearing the planet. Sure, helping yourself, going up the bridge, but it's very, very important to sacrifice yourself to help others. And so I think that is a very important attribute that you have to have.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, are the prices to your knowledge? Because I've never had any idea what stuff cost over there. Or is it basically the same as it is in the U.S. as far as the bridge is concerned? Like,
I actually don't know. I haven't seen the prices for so many years. I couldn't tell you, but it would be more or less the same because I remember growing up. I mean, my mother, for example, she left to flag when I was just about a year old, or 2 years old, and she was gone for 2.5 years. She was doing clear, and as I understood it, the reason why she went there is because it's obviously, the Mecca, it's the whatever. And it was a bit more expensive, but it was justified because that's the best training. You can't get it any better anywhere else. But apparently, it was just only a little bit more expensive than how it would be if you would do it in Europe.
okay,
So I think it's about the same, maybe a little bit more expensive. Although my brother, he did speak to me about him doing the bridge, him wanting to do the bridge in South Africa, because there apparently it's a little bit cheaper.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I always thought, I would love your opinion on this. I always thought Scientology made a real big mistake in charging too much
Oh yeah.
before the OT levels. And keeping in mind that they're also hitting you up with every front group imaginable,
Sure.
and from Narcanon to CCHR to whatever, always asking for more money, IAS, everything. But I always thought that it would have behooved them to have made everything, because it's already incredibly difficult just to get people through some of these courses and the amount of time it takes. If
Yeah.
it was free, it would be hard. So
Yeah.
Like if the further up the bridge you get, right, the more susceptible in my eyes you are to doing what you must to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah.
And so if you could just get people up and through the levels and then through newer aerodynamics, like, and not have it cost that much, then to me you could charge the world for the
Right.
OT levels.
You're quite right. Of course, you actually that's actually a very smart way of doing it, because effectively it doesn't cost you anything, because the staff, they don't cost you any money, or not hardly any money. So what you say makes absolute sense. Is rational to make it quite cheap up to clear. Maybe clear is the first one, which it's a bit more expensive, and then from then on make it much more expensive, because of course it doesn't matter how much money you pay for it. It's gonna the courses are gonna take the time that they're going to take. So it's gonna take quite some time anyway. And so by the time you are there, as you say, you are so indoctrinated and you're so convinced this is the right thing that you're willing to pay anything for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
always thought that they got too greedy too early. And
Yeah.
but maybe when you're selling BS, that's that's where you naturally go.
Yeah.
So, because they oversold clear so bad anyway, that I was always amazed that someone could go clear and then still, I mean, I did not at the times, I didn't know the clear cognition, right? And I never
Sure.
went clear. So once I found out the clear cognition, I was like, I don't understand how anyone would keep going, because you just found out that all of that auditing was unnecessary.
Yeah.
100% of it. So the 4 intensives you just spent $45,000 or $48,000 on were completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been so upset at that
But
point.
it's also weird, because my mother, she became clear when I was a toddler. And yet she would always say things like, that's your bank, stop being banky, and so on and so forth, even though she knew the bank it doesn't exist, the reactive mind.
Right.
Right. So
That's
she
why I
would
don't
still use
understand.
these terms.
Yeah.
Like, well, why do that? I mean, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Why would you continue this idea that the reactive mind exists, and instill this into your children? You know that it doesn't actually exist.
And to be quiet when someone's hurt, and to do
Right.
the quiet births and all that. Like,
Right. Yeah.
why would you be any part of this at that point?
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, the only reason I could come up with, maybe you could come up with something else, but the only reason I could come up with would be if you didn't follow along with that, you would have to give up why, and that would destroy everything.
Right. Because you're not allowed to talk about it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then again, I've always felt that way too with like OT3. Like, the moment that you would complete OT3 and found out that was not in fact a joke, and it was not a test to see if they could get you to believe something stupid, you find out that's the real thing.
Right.
I would have taken my phone off the hook, and that would have been the end of it. I mean,
Well, I mean, I wonder. I mean, you grew up in Scientology as well as a child. Did you? I mean, I remember having these weird conversations with my mother when I was a toddler. I would ask her things like, as you do as a child, you will ask, well, I don't know, you talk about some accident that happened, and then she would talk about overt, what's the word again?
Whipple.
Well, overt and withhold, and um, how do you call it again? When you get when something happens to you, but that's because you did an overt before.
Overt motivator sequence.
Right, overt motivator. And then I would say, well, I didn't do anything, and then she would say, well, maybe in a past life you have done something, you know. And then we got into the conversation of, well, what if you're born with a certain disability? What if you're born with only one arm? What if you're? Or I remember distinctly asking, what happens to all the children that are born in Africa, for example, and are born in an environment where there's no food and everything? Did they do something in a past life? And my mother said, well, it's one of two things: either they have committed severe overts, or because they were so successful in their past life, they were bored, and so they wanted a challenge. And so they purposely were born in a more challenging environment. And that, it's kind of like playing a game. You can play a game, and then you can play it on easy mode, and you're like, oh, that's too easy. Okay, play it on medium mode. And then you finish with the game. Okay, let's play it on hard mode. I mean, that's how she was explaining to me. And
Wow.
so this idea was instilled with me at very young age, as well as, for example, why there are different races. Well, there are different races because there are different alien species that have come to the planet. This is a lecture where LRH talked about that. Or, for example, that behind the moon there is a station. And I remember talking to her about, well, now I know that I get reborn again and again, and there's this station behind the moon where the psychiatrists are to brainwash you, so wipe off all your memory. Now I know that, so I'm not gonna go there. I'm just gonna go to a hospital, get reborn, and I know everything. And she said, well, no, that's not gonna happen, because of course you're not high enough on the level, and that's why you will be sucked over there. And I told her, well, you're clear now, so you don't that doesn't happen to you. You can just float away. And she said, no, because on Mars, apparently, there is a cannon that will shoot you down, and then it will bring you to the station on the moon, wipe your memory, and then down to Earth. And she said that is and she said that Hubbard says that is the reason why humanity will never manage to have a spacecraft fly past Mars. That will never happen because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, she's right. He's right so far. We'll see what
You
happens.
know, another thing that happened to me that I thought was weird, because you know how, like, of course, OTs can't talk to other OTs about OT stuff, right? But
Right.
yet, when I was a kid, they gave me certain times I would have more rope than, like, if someone, like, no one who was 35 could have gotten away with some of the things that I said. That I got away with, but where people would just laugh it off, because even though they're treating me like an adult, there'd be moments where they would be like, okay, he's 10. But I remember saying, and everyone laughing, I was like, because they would let certain rumors get through the campus. Like, in other words, I remember hearing how a bunch of OT8s got together and, held hands or whatever, and made a whole hurricane miss Florida. Like, so they would let you
I
hear those
remember
kind of
hearing
things.
that. Yeah, I remember hearing things like that as well. Yeah.
And so they would let certain things go, sort of make their way through. And I just
Yeah.
remember saying, if you really want to get the stats up, just let them start moving cars around, like in the parking lot and stuff, and floating around the building or whatever. And I mean, there'd be a line around the block, right? And people were laughing, but it was like, it's true.
Yeah.
We would be kicking ass. You wouldn't have to pitch anybody. Fuck the pinch test. You'd be killing it.
Yeah. But I think Hubbard even talks about that you're not supposed to display your OT powers because it's not a
Right.
circus trick. It's not supposed to be a circus trick. So you're not allowed to show that because it's undignifying, darling. It's not very demure to do that. So that was also very clever of him to say that, because of course no OT will be able to admit that they can't actually do that.
Right. Yeah, it's to this day, the thing that gives me the most, I don't know another name for douche chills that they would use in Europe, but when I see an OT8 doing, and on YouTube you can find a couple of them giving their attestations to OT8, and I just stare at their eyes, and I'm just blown away, like, because obviously they know they can't do anything, right? They can't burp the alphabet. They can't find their car keys. There's nothing they can do, right?
Yeah.
So they have to end up doing what, like, remember Tom Cruise when he was wearing that black turtleneck and acting like a freak. Well, they were doing what he was doing there, which is because you can't actually say what the wins really are because there are none, and you don't know
Yeah.
what to, so they just keep going. Boy, ever since I completed, the truth revealed, I'm just like, view,
Yeah.
view, view, wow, and just making stupid noises.
Yeah. You can just copy paste that win and replace the name of the course or of the level, and it would fit with all of them. And what you said before about the OT, that reminds me of a joke. You have an OT3, an OT8, a clear, and somebody who just completed the purification rundown on a dinner table at a restaurant. At the end of the meal, they have to get the bill, and so the OTA, so the clear says, okay, let me use my powers to command the waiter to come to us. So he's doing like his mental thing, nothing happens. The OT3 says, okay, let me do that. And he's like using his mental OT powers, trying to get the waiter, nothing happens. The same thing with the OT8. He's trying to do his mental powers, trying to move objects around in the restaurant, nothing is happening. And then the guy who just finished the purity just raises his hand and says, "Bill, please."
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I love that. Okay. Oh, another question I had for you. Did you keep any contact with anybody that's still on the Sea Org? Like, because I know you were in the cadet org and all, so
Yeah.
like, I could totally imagine in your specific case how it would be possible, though improbable. Were you able to ever like have a friend? I've always wondered if you could have a friend who still likes you and you still like them, even though they're still in. Is that possible, or is that just totally impossible? That no one knows about, obviously.
Well,
Only you and that
yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think it really depends, because you see, it also depends of the circumstances. I think it's fair to say that oftentimes when people leave the SEOC, it's because something bad happened to them and they've had enough and they want to leave. They want to leave, right? Because they've had a bad experience. In my case, I didn't actually want to leave. I was still a very good believing Scientologist. So when I left, I felt like I betrayed everybody. I was a
Oh,
traitor.
okay.
So I didn't feel worthy anyway to have any contact with anybody. But there was actually somebody I considered. I think I would say he was pretty much my only friend, really, in the cadet org. But he had left for America by the time I left the Sea Org.
Oh,
And I mean, there's a couple of people that I'm befriended on Instagram that I knew in the cadet org, or that they were young SEAL members and they were previously before I had arrived in the cadet org. And but it's just befriended, and we said hello or whatever, but not really. I don't no. At the moment, not, unfortunately.
okay. I was just
Yeah.
curious because I know if you grow up someplace, children are that way. Like if I knew you
Sure.
when I was 7, there might not be anything in this entire world that can keep us from being friends.
Right. No,
You
but I
know?
was a hardcore Scientologist. I mean, I was really a believer, and uh, I didn't believe in things like friendship. I didn't see friendship. I saw people always as assets. Why would I be in contact with this person? Well, I'm in contact with this person because this, that, and the other. What I always looked at people. What do they give me, or what do they give the group? Why would I be in contact with them other than that? If there's
Wow.
nothing useful about the person, there's no logical, um, analytical reason to be in contact with that person, right?
Wow,
I
that's
mean,
hardcore.
yeah, and I was like that, very much like my mother. I mean, my mother, she is hardcore Scientologist. She's still in a SEOG now, and I'm sure even if the SEOG were to be cancelled, it doesn't exist anymore, she would be in some basement still working, doing whatever.
Wow. That's That's hardcore. So, what is the average person like in Switzerland? Like in America, my take is the people I've run into have very little, if any, working understanding at all of Scientology. It's just
Oh
that
yeah.
it's something that some celebrities do. It's
Mhm.
some weirdo space BS, and that's about it. You know, does the average person in Switzerland have like a better idea about it than that?
Well, in Germany, it is in several states in Germany. It is considered to be a very dangerous, and it goes against the constitution. And so it is being observed by the by a special branch of the government that observes extremist groups in Germany. And so in Switzerland, where we also speak German, um, when you talk to people about Scientology, they have often a negative reaction. So they'll say, "Oh
Oh,
my God, it's terrible, it's horrible," and so on and so forth. Or they'll say, "Oh yeah, Tom Cruise is in it." Or they'll say what, and they have no idea what you're talking about. But it's usually, but it's never. Um, oh yeah, I've heard some good things, or it's never very positive. It's usually very negative. Um, I don't know if you know this, but recently actually, it was in August. On the 1st of August, there came an article where I was in it. It was in a magazine, and therefore people in my around people I work with and so on and so forth, they found out about my history in Scientology, and they were completely shocked by it, because and all of them heard only negative things about it. So it's I think generally speaking, people see it as a cult in Switzerland. Yeah.
okay. And are you allowed to put flyers at places? I don't even know if you have poles to put them on, but are you able to do chalk and that kind of stuff?
Well, chalk. I think chalk is allowed. I've seen chalk art in the streets. You've got street performers, and then they'll do chalk art and things like that. Put a cap down there for people to throw in money. Sure, I have seen that. I don't know if you need to get a permission or something from the police for that. Flyers, in theory, you're allowed to do that, but in Switzerland, you have the possibility to put on your mailbox like a little sticker that says, "Please no promotional mail or flyers or anything like that." And if that's there, um, it is courtesy to not put something in it. People still will put sometimes things in it, but it is considered very rude to do that. And
Okay.
walking around giving flyers, that's interesting because I haven't seen that for ages. And something I had forgotten about, and I remembered about a month ago. In German, there is a saying which roughly translated means, "Don't let somebody tie a bear on your back."
Hmm.
That's what it literally means. And it basically means don't get tricked, don't get fooled. So don't have somebody sell you a rucksack, but it's actually a bear that's going to attack you. Like in that's the sort of idea behind it. And when
Okay.
I was a child, we were usually groups of 3 or 4, two of us usually children, two adults, and we would go through Basel, and we would have a huge bear tied on our back, and we would walk around like that, and we had the slogan here on the front, the saying, and we would go around and give leaflets, and it's usually about say no to drugs, say yes to life, or about CCHR. So we did a lot of doing flyers when we were children, because that was our exchange. Because of course our parents, they paid for our courses, and we didn't have anything to give as an exchange. So what we did, we helped out in the org by giving out flyers and so on and so forth. But
Okay.
since I'm back in Switzerland, which has been now 11 years, I've never seen flyers being given out by Scientology, and um, by other groups. When it happens, then it's usually in front of a shop. So you have a shop that, I don't know, let's say McDonald's, and they have some sort of promotion. Then you've got a guy standing right outside of the shop, giving out stuff. But you don't usually have a person then walking through the streets. You don't really see that in Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And anyone who has a question for Samuel, please put question before it so I can find it pretty easy. Um, and how do you foresee Scientology's inevitable end? How do you see it coming?
How do I see it coming? I
Yeah.
think it will happen slowly. It will happen slowly and quietly, in the sense within Scientology, it's going to be very slow and quiet. Like they're not going to tell the Scientologists themselves what's happening really. I mean, you can see it already happening. Orcs closing down, orcs combining, because you're supposed to have the different orcs, and they're never supposed to be combined. Hubbard said so, but you can see that already happening. I think it's going to be the lawsuits. It's going to be the different publications that are coming out. People talking about the things, about their experiences. People are more willing to publish stuff. You know, for example, the things that I did in August, we did that interview we did in March, and it only came out in August because they had to go through all the different lawyers and to figure out, make sure that everything is fine, and you know that they can't be sued or anything like that. I think as time will go on, it will be much quicker. They're not going to be quite so hesitant to bring out more and more stories, because of course different papers, they want to protect themselves as well from a lawsuit. I think these sort of things, and yeah, that's what's eventually going to bring the end of Scientology. I mean, I think it's going to be the end of the organized Scientology, but Scientology is always going to exist, in my view, because there are literally millions of books worldwide, and just any crazy person can just pick up a book and then start their own thing. And obviously, Scientology, like independent groups, also in Switzerland exists, and you know, they're going to always exist, I think.
I think a thing that really hurts them is by not sticking to the tech. Like
Oh yeah,
to me, the kind of people that you need for a cult to survive the worst times, it you need the kind of attitude that existed in the late 70s and early 80s to even the late 80s, where, like I've said many times, that if Miscavige did any of the stuff like closing the Paris Celebrity Center, you know, but if he would have done that in 1988, he'd have been thrown out of the building. So it was savagely culty, more culty. Like it was, you know, Source was it.
yeah,
Period. There was nothing to talk about. If you went off of that, it was your butt. So now there's all these exceptions, like you said, you know, and the fundraising, you know, to the combining, you know, foundation and day hours to, you know, closing orgs and what's the point of being in a cult if you're not in a cult? Like, you know what I mean? If you can just turn off whatever you don't want, whenever, you know, that doesn't make the kind of people that can actually get through the times that are coming for them. And so I think you have a much weaker mindset now than you did then. So, and it's so much easier to find out the whole thing's bogus, even by accident, where you could not possibly have done that before.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But okay, so let's go. I got some questions for you that have nothing to do with Scientology.
All right, go ahead.
And so if you had to, would you rather add ranch? You had to do one of these, okay? For like a month. You have to either would you rather add ranch to every meal or hot sauce to every meal?
Well, I don't like spicy, so I would have to say ranch.
Would you rather eat an overcooked steak or eat overcooked pasta?
Overcooked pasta.
God, that's a tough one. Yeah. Would you rather have someone cook all your meals or wash all your dishes?
Oh, wash all my dishes. I don't. I mean, that's definitely, yeah. I'll cook my meals. Thank you very much.
What's the best dish you made with the least ingredients?
The best dish, you know, I couldn't even tell you, because I have this friend Andrew, and then sometimes I will go to his home, and always what happens is I end up cooking, of course, and then he'll say, okay, we're gonna go and buy all these ingredients, and I said, no, let's have a look what you've got actually, and then we just pick up whatever he has, and we always make something fabulous out of it, just doing something with whatever he's got there, and it's always quite good. But I couldn't even name you. It's so many things. I think you can make so fantastic things with very, very few ingredients. But yeah, I couldn't tell you specifically what.
So there's nothing like if you only had 4 ingredients. I mean, I
Give me
guess when
4
you're a chef,
ingredients.
though, you could think of 100 things to make out of nothing. Yeah. So
Sure. And every kitchen will have certain things like oil, vinegar, salt, pepper, maybe 1 or 2 dried herbs or something. You'll always be able to upgrade it. But of course, you need to have the know-how and the knowledge and so on and so forth, for sure. Yeah.
and what's a recipe that anyone can follow, but that would really impress people? Like, I'll give you an example first, which was something that I came up with, and I've had massive kudos for this, where people thought I was just an amazing cook, and I'm absolutely the opposite. But I took a swordfish steak,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this Lee and Perrin's oil and vinegar dressing out here that you
Yeah.
shake up. It's cheese and garlic, and I put that in a baggie, put the steak in there,
Okay. Yeah.
and just let it sit there for 6-7 minutes, and then put it on the barbecue, and
Mhm.
people's heads exploded. But the
Wow.
truth is, anybody could pull that one off. So
Sure.
give me
Sure.
something else like that where I can impress people, and there's no way I can blow it.
Oh, mm, difficult. It's difficult, like a simple things like that. I find these very simple but effective ways of cooking, I find much more difficult to come up with, because I know so many complex ways that I just go immediately there.
Oh,
So let me see. Okay, so if you want to make, for example, a salad dressing, and the problem of when you have vinegar and you've got oil and it always separates.
uh-huh.
So what you can do, you can add an egg yolk in it and a little bit of mustard, and that's it. And then you just shake it up, and then it will stay together, a nice little sauce, rather than it dividing all the time.
Wow. That's
So
pretty
that's a
neat.
little trick. Yeah,
So go say
it's a
that one more
chemical.
time then. So I take say that one more time. How did that
So you
work?
take so you take your salad dressing. Either you have already a salad dressing that you've made, or you just take uh, 1 part of oil, half a part of vinegar. So let's say 200 milliliters of oil, 100 milliliters of vinegar, and then you
Okay.
just add maybe like half a teaspoon of mustard and an egg yolk.
Wow.
Egg yolk, because the egg yolk has a chemical called lecithin, and the lecithin helps to combine oils and water. This is what the old Renaissance artists used for oil paintings, because
Wow.
you had the color pigments, and then you had to grind them up into a powder, and then you added a bit of water and a bit of oil to it, and of course it would separate. So you would add an egg yolk in it, and this is
Okay.
called egg temper, and that's how. And this egg yolk has this lecithin, which helps to combine everything, so it doesn't divide over time. And that's how in the Renaissance period, that's how they painted, and that's how we use now in cooking for
Wow.
cold sauces to make sure they keep together.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
And I love all things cheese, all things cheesy. Like, without cheese, I would just lose my mind. That's the most important ingredient on the planet. Well, I guess maybe butter, but after that, cheese. What are your favorite cheesy dishes to make?
My favorite cheesy dish, I love, for example, cauliflower cheese. That's something I
Ooh.
love. Yeah, good
Ooh.
cauliflower cheese, or any sort of pasta, where you have like any pasta with any sauce. It doesn't really matter, and you just put it in an oven dish, and you just cover it in cheese, and then shove it in the oven, and just let it get a nice little crust on top of that. Anything like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's fantastic. Like, I have baked ziti like that. Yeah,
Mm.
I love that. Okay, let's see if anyone has any questions for you here. Okay, so I don't get in trouble.
Sure.
Uh, Would you ever do a cooking show on YouTube? Well, you sort of do, right?
Well, I've done a couple of recipes. Check out my tiramisu recipe; it's most excellent. And yeah, I've done a couple, but it's just I'm not happy with how it is really, because I have a certain way how I'm picturing it. I want a camera on my face so I can explain, I can look at the people, and I want a camera on my hands so they can see what I'm actually doing, right? But at the moment, I only have one camera that to have my face, but you can't really see necessarily what my hands are doing. And I have to. I recorded the cooking session that I had here, right here on my work desk, because my kitchen is far too tiny to actually do it there. So I would need to have a better setup really, because I wasn't really happy with the setup, even if it turned out okay in the end. But to answer the question, I've done a couple already, and I'm sure in the future we'll do something. Yeah.
Here is, I guess, your playlist, so people can click on that.
Oh yeah.
Scientology, Miriam.
Oh hey.
Well, that you can answer that one.
Well, darling, it's just I just put a little bit of a suppression foundation, and it's obviously glowing up.
The same thing with me. I just stick with the eyeliner. I'm doing good on that.
Perfect.
You had me at cheesy crust.
Any cheesy crust, it doesn't even matter what it is. Yeah.
Magnus from San Bernardino says oven baked cauliflower covered with cheese. Oh yeah, that is fantastic. Yeah. That is good stuff. I didn't even recognize how much I loved grilled vegetables till I was like in my mid-20s, and then I realized it's just one of the greatest things ever. I mean,
yeah.
Bianca's ready for a snack. Anyone else suddenly starving? Let's see. Are there any questions in here, guys? Because if not, we are good to go. Let me look here. Question. What's your favorite spice?
I don't know how you call it in English. In German, it's Piment. Let me just go on Google Translate. It could very well be the same word. It is a small dried berry, and it has the flavors of cinnamon, of coriander seeds. I think cilantro, you call that in America, cilantro seeds. Yeah. Of different sort of spices, many different spices. Let me just have a look if I can see how you call that in English. It's called pimento.
Oh, okay.
Pimento. Yeah, I would say that's my favorite spice.
Oh, here's a question that I missed from earlier. Okay. Did the Swiss direct democracy tradition ever clash with Scientology's authoritarianism in the minds of Scientologists?
No, because in the minds of Scientology, we are superior to any sort of way of democracy or any sort of government or anything. I mean, that's how we saw ourselves as superior to any other way of ruling, of governing or anything like that.
That's very true.
In Switzerland, we have direct democracy. We vote constantly for legislations, for changes in the constitutions, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And Magnus said Gothenburg ore is permanently closed. Okay. All right.
Okay. Wow. Good.
That's good news. Yeah. I'm always ready for good news. Suppressing. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? Love Manny says cumin. Oh, and Haggis Basher is like an amazing cook too.
No, I didn't know. Paprika, oh my God. Pimento, yeah. Paprika is very good. You can use paprika almost anywhere. That's true.
And Fluffer says, do you find cooking or art more therapeutic?
No, for me, cooking is work. I would say art and reading, particularly poetry. I
Oh,
find that very much more, or also writing. I also write poetry and I write short stories and things like that. It just allows me to, it's difficult a bit to say. It's the same with art, because it allows me to escape my reality. It allows
got
me
it.
to go somewhere else. And so, take it as is it good? Is it really that good? Is it not that good? Is it I'm not confronting the reality? Uh, but that's my happy places. Writing, reading, painting. Cooking for me is work.
Got it.
But I do take a lot of pride in what I do. That's for sure. But like if I had enough money, I wouldn't go and work as a chef. I wouldn't do
Well,
that.
one thing that I heard you say on your channel that really made sense to me, because my sister was an amazing chef,
Mhm.
and she could impress people with just the most amazing dishes, etc. But she would cook like you were saying that you make like a potato or a biscuit or like, so basically the most easy, nothing, low effort stuff for yourself. But when it's
Oh
for
yeah,
other people, that's when you shine. But for
yeah.
yourself, you'll make a
No,
potato or whatever.
for myself, because I see myself. I still have this attitude. I'm assuming this is from Scientology, that I'm just not worth the effort. I'm not worth the time, the effort, the money that I would spend on these ingredients. But if I do it for somebody else, that's the joy of cooking, seeing the
Uh,
enjoyment of other people, making other people happy through your work. That's what I enjoy doing. I love, for example, also giving gifts to people, and really think about, for example, when we have a conversation and then they mention something and we laugh, I will buy something to do with that. So it's a sort of connection. But I hate receiving gifts. I cannot have receive gifts, and I'm very wooden when I get a gift. I say, "Oh, well, thank you very much. It's very thoughtful. That's very useful," or whatever. I don't have an emotional outburst, because I find it very uncomfortable when people give me something. But I love giving, and it's the same with cooking. I love to cook for other people, and I love spending a lot of money to cook for other people. I don't mind that, but I would not never even spend half of that just for myself.
yeah,
And
I get that. I
I
get
still
that.
have that. I still have that. So yeah,
That's a tough one to shake. That's for sure. It's
yeah,
yeah, I don't it's really difficult to take compliments, I notice, for me,
yeah,
because it's like the same thing, when you're made to it's always the group. You're basically meaningless. It's the group that matters. So yeah, it's always
it's the group that gives you meaning.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
So,
it's a horrible circle there.
but I have
Um
I have improved a little bit. So I don't do it with the cooking, but what I do is I buy art. I buy quite a lot of art from living artists and so on and so forth. And I just recently bought two vases for about $500, which is this is a lot of money for me. Uh, but I said to myself, you know what? I just want it, and I'm just buying it now. And it's a waste of money, in the sense of, from the silk attitude. Like, what are you gonna do with two vases? You can't do anything with that. So, but yeah, I'm doing these sort of things. Like once or twice a year, I will just splurge on art for myself,
I love
really,
that.
just because I want to. Yeah.
I
But with
love that.
cooking for myself, that's a bit. I'm not quite there yet.
And Sharon wants to know, what's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. That's like choosing your favorite child. I would say I would say I can't really pinpoint one meal, but I would say my favorite sort of types of meals are broiled meats. So any meat that you fry, then you put it in a deep pan with some vegetables, some wine in there, some spices, put a lid on it, and you shove it in the oven. You forget it for 3-4 hours. Delicious. It just falls apart, falls off the bone. I love that kind of. I much prefer that sort of meat rather than a steak, for example, which is which you fry just quickly, because the other one I find that it has much more flavor.
Okay. And what is the equivalent of the red seal for a chef in Europe?
I don't know what a red seal is, so I wouldn't know
I
what the equivalent
I
is.
don't either, so I can't help.
It is probably some some level of recognition. I'm not sure.
And what do you prefer, sweet or savory? Brooke Elliott wants to know.
I would prefer sweet. Something interesting, fun fact, fun nerdy fact, because I'm a nerd. You know how they say that it doesn't matter how full you are, there's always space for dessert.
Right?
Do you know why that is?
Why?
Well, that's because of the flavors that you've been eating. Because on the tongue, you have different areas that taste different kinds of flavors. So sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and so on and so forth. And normally, when you go through the meal, it's all either bitter, it is salty, it is sour, in that sort of direction. And so, but you never have anything sweet. So then when you have something sweet in the end, that's what you crave. It's basically your senses crave the sweetness. And that's why you almost always have space for another dessert, because you haven't had that flavor stimulated up to that point.
That's interesting. Okay. And how do you feel about road trips? What do you do for fun?
Road trips, I don't road trip, would that be like just driving around in a car, or what is that
Hopping
exactly?
in your car and going from A to B, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I do that, but not with car. I do it with the public transport. I do it with the train. I don't drive myself.
Okay.
What I do for fun? What is fun? Well, I paint. I paint. I like to go for walks. I like, reading. I'm fairly introverted, so I'm not gonna go to a party or anything like that. I will sometimes force myself to a party when I get invited, just because that's just something I know I should do, just to get to know people as well. I don't know many people, um, because I just tend to have difficulty trusting people, really, other than a very surface level,
Sure.
and that's the sort of thing I like to do. Oh, I love gaming as well.
Oh,
Gaming, I game for hours. Yeah.
beautiful. And who is your favorite poet? A girl wants to know.
It's cliche, but I would say Schiller.
Okay.
He's a German poet of the 18th century. He lived at the same time as Goethe. Goethe, you might have heard.
Awesome. Okay. Samuel was cooking for us and it was excellent.
Ah, yeah. With
That
Balash,
makes
that's
sense.
right.
And okay. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Okay. So listen, I really appreciate you being here. That was super cool. And
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I've enjoyed your channel, and like I said backstage before we went live, you have what seems to be anyway a very calm demeanor and stuff that I really appreciate. Like, and you said that took some time, to get that way, and but I really like it because it's I've been just since I'm so new on this, even talking about Scientology, my entire experience is 5 months, and I buried stuff so effectively that it was really difficult to even look at any of it again. But I can see through people like yourself too that with time, it's things are going to be less triggering anyway. And once you say something, it's that was really difficult because saying something was much like I thought I was okay because I could think it, but then saying it was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm getting past all that now, which is wonderful, and getting some comfort with who I am, and why I am the way I am, you know.
Sure.
So, but like I say, watching your channel, you just have a real comforting to me anyway. Way about you
Thank you.
that's very easy to watch, and And you just don't seem that triggered and out of you. You seem not like me, which is good. That's how I want to be.
Well,
So,
I mean, to be fair, you've only come out 5 months ago, right? Come out and spoken about it. I mean, you're not like dipping your toe in it. You've just jumped into the ice water. So, I mean, I've had some years, and I went up and down with my emotions, and I've been in extreme depression, and then I've come out of that, and you know, and something might happen that, maybe next week, in 2 weeks, in a month or so, you might feel really terrible about whatever, like, and you don't want to maybe do YouTube anymore, and it's fine. You don't have to, like, that's something I have to say to myself as well. Okay, that's fine. And then, like, I haven't done now a video for a good month or something like that, because I wasn't feeling all that well, and that's okay. YouTube will still be there, no pressure. And then you just come back again and just do another video or whatever. you know it's very important to really do what makes you, what helps you with your recovery. Sure, we are here on YouTube to inform, to prevent people to go into Scientology, or if they go into Scientology, that they're at least informed and know what they're doing. And that is a sort of it's a selfless work in that sort of way. So you're helping others, but at the same time, you're also doing it for ourselves, really. Connecting with other people, talking to other people to help understand what has happened to us, and talk to like-minded people who've had the same experience. So I think that is very important as well, to keep that in mind, that if you feel like, okay, I was supposed to do a live, I was supposed to do a video now, I schedule something, it's perfectly okay for you not to do that. If you feel like, I don't want to do it this week, I'll skip it to next week or whatever. Yeah, we're still all here, darling.
well, that's great advice. I really appreciate it. And again, I thank you so much for being here with me. That was really, really that made me really happy when I got word that you were going to be here. So that made me really happy, and I appreciate you. Everybody, make darn sure, if you are not subscribed to the SP Chef, that you do so, and make sure you hit notifications all, and like everything on his channel. Okay. So that's it. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate you, and I will absolutely talk to you in the future. And I
Indeed.
will look to follow you and what you do, because I for some reason I just think something really cool is going to happen to you. I don't even know why, but hopefully that's the case. And I could say I knew him back when.
Right.
So have
When he was
yourself
still humble.
So have a wonderful Monday, and I know it's late for you. And again, I thank you for putting up with all this.
Of course.
I know
Thank you very
everyone
much.
who subs to me really was excited to find out that you were coming on. So appreciate you. You take good care of yourself, and we'll speak later. Okay.
Indeed.
Okay. Thank you. All right, guys, that's it for us. That's another edition of One on One, and that's Samuel Spectacular SP Chef. See you all later. Take care, everybody.